Emotions either keep us anchored to the past, like you have an experience that brands you emotionally and you can't get past that emotion.
Right, that bad habit.
Then that emotion's driving certain thoughts, and for the most part you're thinking in the past. And if you do that enough times, you'll condition the body to literally live in the past. And the body can't then create a new future because it's so connected to the past. But then if you can take emotion, and primarily elevated emotions, emotions of love and gratitude and inspiration and invincibility and courage, those elevated emotions then we can use to drive us into a new future. So then when you learn new information and you review it, you're actually changing your brain neurologically. Now your brain is classically a record of the past, of all the things you've learned and experienced in your life. It's an artifact. But now as you learn new information and you begin to think about how you're going to apply it, you begin to create a vision, you're installing the hardware, and now your brain is now a map to the future. Now, once it's a map to a future, and you can begin to revisit that vision, and you can bring up the emotion of what that vision is going to create. Now, most people say, well, I'll give thanks when my wealth shows up, or I'll feel happy when my lover appears, or we wait for something outside of us to change something inside of us. That's the Newtonian model of physics. The quantum model is to give thanks ahead of the actual experience. So much so that your body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between actual experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you fabricate by thought alone. The body literally believes it's in that future reality in the present moment, and you're going from thinking to being without doing anything.
Wow.
Because the body literally does not know the difference. So then you're selecting new genes in new ways, you're instructing those genes, and your body's believing it's in that future in the present moment, and you're moving into a state of being that's defined in the future. So the research shows with mental rehearsal, thinking about a future, that it changes the brain and it changes the body. But the research that was done to show that it changes the body is that when people said, like they were doing finger exercises, and one group of people were pulling a spring for an hour a day for 4 weeks, and at the end of 4 weeks they had a 30% increase in muscle strength. Well, that makes sense.
Okay.
Put a load on a muscle, you take it through a range of motion,
right.
You tear the protein fibers, they grow back bigger, that's adaptation. But another group, they had them close their eyes and mentally rehearse pulling the spring in their mind without ever pulling the spring. And when they said to these people, when you pull that spring in your mind, say harder, stronger, bring up the emotion to amplify the effort, well, it enhanced their muscle strength. And as a matter of fact, the average person had a 22% increase in muscle strength, never lifted a finger. So the body began to change to look like it was having the experience for 4 weeks, but the body never lifted a finger. So now the body now is physically changed by thought alone. Now, why is this important? Because if your brain and body look like the experience has already happened, then relax, because the experience is going to find you. When we react to someone or something in our life, there's a change in our internal chemical state. We're altered in some way. And the emotions of stress are anger and aggression and hostility, their frustration, their hatred, their judgment, their fear, anxiety, insecurity, competition, hopelessness, powerlessness, depression, guilt, shame, unworthiness. Those are all created by the hormones of stress. Now, those emotions tend to produce a very strong energetic signature. Why? Because if you're being chased by a lion in antiquity, you better wake up and pay attention to your body, to your environment and time, and those hormones give us a rush of energy.
The adrenaline.
So the adrenaline that's created produces a strong branding effect, and we can remember experiences better because we can remember how they feel. Now, when we're altered in some way because of some emotional reaction from someone or something, it alters our perception too. And so when we're feeling differently because of the experience, if we react during that time that we're altered, if we say something, if we do something, if we write an email, we'll always say, I should have never said that. I should have never done that. I should have never sent that email, because our perception is altered. We're acting in survival, and when we're in survival, we tend to be highly predictable, just very limited and selfish.
So hormones make you do that.
Hormones make us do that. So then if you can't control your emotional reaction and you allow that refractory period of chemicals from some event that's happened to you in your day or your week, and you allow it to linger for hours or days, that's called a mood. A mood is just one long emotional reaction. So you say to someone, what's wrong with you? I'm in a mood. Really? Why are you in a mood? Well, this thing happened to me 5 days ago.
Yep.
They're basically living by the same emotion. If you keep that same refractory period going on for weeks or months, that's called a temperament. Why is he so frustrated and angry? I don't know. Why? Because this experience happened to me 6 months ago, which means the person is still reacting to the same past event. Now, if you keep that refractory period going on for years on end, that's called a personality trait. So then the emotion from the experience then we begin to identify with as who we are. We're not our emotions, but we wear those emotions layer by layer. Now, here's the problem. Those emotions then drive our thinking. And so then we only can think equal to how we feel. And when feelings become the means of thinking, or we can't think greater than how we feel, then for the most part, the emotion drives certain thoughts in the brain. Those neurons fire and wire in a very specific sequence, pattern, and combination. Those neurons then produce the chemicals for us to feel more anger. And then once we feel more anger, we're going to think more thoughts equal to how we feel. And this cycle goes on, and we begin to hardwire our brain into very fixed patterns, and we emotionally condition the body to live in the past. So now the body is believing it's in the same environmental conditions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The body's in the past. So a person who's motivated by justice because of an experience that created anger in them, if they regulate their emotions properly, then they're using that emotion as inspiration. They're transmuting the anger into inspiration as long as they understand its energy. Now, if they get in similar situations that create the same emotion because it's similar to the event that happened in the past, then their challenge is to not experience anger, because if they haven't overcome that anger, then they haven't evolved. As you begin to overcome the emotions from past experiences, the memory without the emotion is called wisdom. As you begin to restrain certain habits and behaviors and actions and choices, and as you begin to become aware of the emotions that keep bringing you to a lower denominator, nerve cells that no longer fire together, no longer wire together, you begin to silence the circuits in your brain that are connected to the old self. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So then there are physical changes that take place in the brain, and we call that pruning. And so as you begin to no longer use those circuits, the brain doesn't need them, so it begins to prune those connections away. Now, every place where one neuron that connects with another neuron is called a memory. So if you're pruning the circuits away that are connected to the old self, then the memory of the old self no longer exists biologically. Now, we could say you're born again, or we could say you're reinvented, and so then where is that memory stored? And it's stored in the soul as wisdom. And that's when we get to then begin to create new experiences, because the soul now is no longer anchored to the emotion that keeps reliving the past experience. I think emotions are part of life. As a matter of fact, emotions make life fun. And when I react to something, it's not the question of that I reacted. The question is how long I react. Like a kid, you see a kid go, "What? I don't want to put my shoes on." You're putting them on. Okay, They put their shoes on, and then, all right, I got my shoes on. So like adults, and what's one of the greatest things that we can teach our children? Emotional intelligence is shortening the refractory period of their emotional reactions. That's it.
That's resilience.
That's resilience. So then if they can't get beyond their emotions, it's going to become part of their personality, and they're going to use those emotions to get what they want. So it's key, because as we live our life, we're always going to be dissatisfied, or we're going to have thwarted intentions or unfulfilled expectations, or what's going to go on. And you can go, damn.
Right. Right.
And they just get on with it. And that's me. I always go, my assistant and I always laugh about it all the time, because I always say, don't respond yet. Let's wait for the chemicals to wear off. Let's just wait.
Great.
Just wait.
What a great
I want. I know I want to too. I feel so good. But if we get beyond it, then the gap between the way things appear and the way things really are closed down, because now we're not looking at that experience through that emotional, window. So then when the emotion wears off, you have more clarity, you have more resilience, you can make better choices, because that refractory period has been altered. So I don't think it's bad to react. I mean, I came from an Italian
normal.
family. It's just what we do. But how long you react is the question. So I think that's true evolution.